What are some of the secrets of the Arabian Peninsula? Hugh Renfro, the executive producer of the award-winning documentary Arabia, has many answers. He'll explain them next on Global Perspectives.
This is Global Perspectives with Pulitzer Prize-winning commentator John Bercia.
Welcome to Global Perspectives. How has the Arabian Peninsula evolved over the centuries? Hugh Renfro, who has worked in Saudi Arabia for more than 6 decades and was executive producer of the documentary Arabia, offers a sweeping perspective. Welcome to the show, Mr. Renfro.
Well, thank you for giving me an opportunity to tell you a little bit about Saudi Arabia and the Arabian Peninsula. It's quite an evolution. In the 1800s, the Arabian Peninsula was part of the Ottoman Empire. The Turks controlled the area, and it was populated by a bunch of very independent tribes who had been raiding back and forth against one another for centuries, and for grazing areas and water and livestock and ladies. And at that time, in the 1800s, there were 2 families that lived in a little mud village outside the capital city of Riyadh that would prove to be very important to the evolution of Arabia. And they were the Saud family and the Wahhab family. And the Saud family were tribal leaders, and the Wahhab family were religious leaders. And they lived in this little mud village, Diriyah. And the Turks considered these 2 families to be rebels. And so the Turks sent the Egyptian army into Saudi Arabia, into Arabia, to drive these people out of the area. And the Egyptian army laid siege to this group for 3 years. It finally drove them out into the desert, and they fled north to present-day Kuwait. And by 1900, the eldest family of the Saud, or the eldest son of the Saud family, was Abdulaziz. And he and his sons and brothers and cousins and associates decided that they were going to drive the Turks out of the Arabian Peninsula, and they began a 20-year campaign against the Turks so that they could regain their position as tribal leaders. And so with the help of the British in World War I, Lawrence of Arabia, they finished clearing the Turks out of the Arabian Peninsula by 1922, and that was really the end of the Ottoman Empire. And so Abdulaziz wanted to establish a nation, but in order to establish a nation, he had to have all of the tribes behind him. He had to unify the tribes. Well, a bunch of the tribes that were with him on the war against the Turks stayed with him for political reasons, and but a bunch of them were reluctant. They weren't interested in being unified, and they returned to their ancestral grazing areas. And these reluctant tribes were called the Ikhwan, or the Brotherhood, or the Brothers. Abdulaziz tried politically to get them into the fold, and he wasn't successful, and so finally he went to war against the Ikhwan. And he finally subjugated them, and so they wouldn't feel so badly about being subjugated, he established a pension fund for the Ikhwan. And as a young oil company representative up in the old mud capital, I used to see old Bedouins wrapped in their robes sitting on the ground out in front of a multi-story mud building, waiting for the doors to open. That was the headquarters of the Ikhwan Pension Fund, and they were waiting for their monthly stipend, which was a little drawstring bag of silver coins.
Tell me how you first came to Saudi Arabia.
Well, I was, when I got out of the Marine Corps at the end of World War II, I went back to work for Standard Oil Company of California, which was later renamed Chevron. And I wasn't making enough money to pay my bills, and but I heard that Chevron had a subsidiary in Saudi Arabia. And so I checked up on this, and I found that instead of making $300 a month, if I went to Arabia, I could make $600 a month.
Double your income.
And so I arranged, with much effort, I arranged a transfer to this Saudi Arabian operation, and it was the best thing I ever did. And I still, I go around the country giving lectures on Saudi Arabia and showing by IMAX film. And so I'm still associated with Saudi Arabia.
What was it like then? I think most people have an image of Saudi Arabia today with modern buildings and structures, but what were the facilities like where you lived, for example?
Well, I went in 1952, and these were still the early days. 90% of the population in Saudi Arabia were Bedouins, nomads, and following the grass and the water. And when they started the Arabian American Oil Company, that was with in 1933, King Abdulaziz signed a concession agreement, an oil concession with Chevron, and a 60-year agreement. And they, according to the terms of the agreement, they had to pay an annual fee of $5,000 and an oil royalty of 4 shillings a ton, which equated in those days to a penny and a half a barrel. Doesn't sound like very much, but in those days, oil sold on the world market for $1 to $1.50 a barrel. And they needed an educated workforce. And in those days, especially in the Eastern Province where the oil was, they really didn't have schools as such. There were religious schools where young boys studied the Quran, and it certainly didn't prepare them for a workforce. And so Aramco established schools. And the Saudi worker would work 4 hours a day, go to school 4 hours a day, get paid for 8. And we, the American supervisors, had to check everybody's report card every 2 weeks. And if an employee was falling behind on a subject, he got special tutoring. And if he couldn't bring his grades up, he had to start working 8 hours a day and going to school on his own time until he could bring his grades up. And the very bright students we sent on to prep schools and colleges in the U.S. And over about a 20-year period, Aramco, the Arabian American Oil Company, educated over 30,000 Saudi employees through elementary school and on into high school. And but in those days, all the communities were still mud buildings, no paved streets, and I spent a lot of time in the capital in those days, and I'd spent a lot of time at the palace, because in those days, all of the ministries, the government offices, were in the palace, and they were all headed by a prince. And we were talking about unifying the tribes. Abdulaziz found that marriage was one way of unifying the tribes. And so he used to travel the desert a lot and visit all of the tribes and marry a young lady from every tribe. And under the terms of Sharia, Islamic law, a man is allowed 4 wives. And the reason for this was that so many men were killed in battle that this was a way of protecting the women. And So according to Sharia also, a man can divorce a wife. And the average fellow has to think this over very carefully, because the law also states that he must support her equitably for the rest of her life. But when Abdulaziz would get to the magic number of 4, he'd divorce them and marry 4 more. And so it seems like today almost everyone in Saudi Arabia is related to the royal family in one way or another. And on the palace grounds, again in the old mud structure days, was a multi-story building with a pink dome, and that was the harem or the harem. And there were 200 wives and ex-wives, and in the harem, and these were the days of slavery, and each wife and ex-wife was entitled to slave women, and so there were a lot of women on the palace grounds.
So tell us about the documentary. What inspired you to produce it?
You know, I've been giving lectures on Saudi Arabia across the country since 2003. And I came back from a visit in Saudi Arabia at the end of 2003, and the owner of an IMAX film company in California called me and said that he wanted to make a film on Saudi Arabia. And having spent so much time on Saudi Arabia and public relations, I thought, what a great deal for Saudi Arabia. It'd be great for their public relations. And so we got together, and I kind of reviewed the films that he had made, and he'd made Everest and all of these great IMAX films, and I was really impressed. And so I took some of his literature, and I started writing to government heads in Saudi Arabia and business owners, and telling them about this project possibility, and that it would be so great for the kingdom. And gee, I started writing these letters in 2004, and I wasn't getting any positive replies, or hardly any replies from anyone. And so finally, Khalid Zain al-Reza, the Saudi industrialist who pays me to give the lectures and show our film, he finally got around to reading everything I'd been sending to him, and he was impressed, and he went to California and he met with the owner of the film company. He liked what he saw, and he put the seed money down, and we had a project. But then I really needed to get some funding. And so I was writing to the CEOs of every major U.S. corporation and explaining in detail what we were trying to accomplish. And of course, no one knew me. And so I wasn't getting anywhere. I wasn't getting corporate sponsors. And so Prince Turki Al Faisal, who was then the Saudi ambassador to the U.S., was an old friend. So I got a hold of Turkey, and I said, look, I'll write the letters, I'll send them to you, you put them on your letterhead, sign them, and send them out. And then I started getting some corporate sponsorship. And so we worked on that film. It was from 2005 through 2009.
It was a long time.
And it was a long time, and it was a hard job, mainly because of the bureaucracy and the department heads of the Saudi government. They all wanted to have control of this project, but they didn't want any responsibility. and so we really had to fight our way through to get permissions and so forth, and access to filming sites and so forth. And so we never let anyone have any control, and we maintained our independence pretty well. And but it took different Saudi government departments controlled different areas in the kingdom, and so we had to repeatedly go to them for permission to film certain sites, and we finally were really getting some pretty good cooperation from the government. They realized that this was a good PR opportunity, and we filmed. Well, you've seen the film, and we filmed a lot in Medina and Mecca, and we filmed the Hajj, and I can remember filming in Mecca during Ramadan, the month of the fast, and we had our camera gear, you know, an IMAX camera. It takes 4 fellows to lift it. You know, it's not easily done, and so we had our camera gear on an elevated platform on the roof of the Grand Mosque, overlooking the central part, the Kaaba, and it was Ramadan, and the heat index was 124. It was really hot. And of course, during Ramadan, you're supposed to fast from daybreak till nighttime. And, but it was so hot, I had a guy smuggling water up to our camera location, and an old fellow, an old holy man with a long beard, started giving me the devil in Arabic and for breaking the fast, because he caught me drinking water. So I told him, I said, sir, grandfather, in Arabic, you know your Quran? Yes. And I said, the Quran says, if you're really old, and I'm really old, I was in my 80s, and if you're working or if you're traveling, you can break the fast. And he smiled and he said, yes. So then we were okay.
That's a good thing. What is the response of most audiences when they see the documentary for the first time?
Actually, the responses have been positive. I find from my lectures and showing the film that people say, you know, we didn't know that. Oh, that's great. You know, it was very positive. And because, you know, for centuries, Saudi Arabia was a closed country. I can remember as a young oil company representative working up in the capital. To go to the capital, I had to have a letter of invitation from the government. You know, it was, and at that time there were 12 foreigners in the capital, and I was one of them, and it was really, the kingdom was closed to outsiders, you know, and but that's all changed now, and they have a tourism bureau, and the head of the tourist bureau goes around the country associating with other countries' tourism groups.
So what is the most common question you're asked when you go out to make a presentation?
Is how women are treated in Saudi Arabia. And in the old days, it was public punishment, keep the women covered up, keep them in the house. And because of strict segregation under the laws of Islam, women were very seldom seen in public. If they wanted to go to the market, they had to be accompanied by a male member of their family. If they wanted to leave the country, they had to have an okay from their husband and be accompanied by a male member of their family. The laws haven't changed, Sharia, but the practices have changed. And this is no longer true. And because of strict segregation in the early days, they established women's banks. And these were not small affairs, because 68% of the wealth in Saudi Arabia is in the hands of the women. And they're huge. But of course, because of segregation, the women didn't have the same break in the job market, but they've always worked in medical and education, but now more and more they're working for private businesses. And an old friend of mine, Suleiman Olayan, who had become the first Saudi billionaire, when he died, he left this huge international business conglomerate, and his two Saudi daughters run this. And they own 35% of Chase Bank. They own Sealand Transportation Company, the biggest freight forwarder in the world. A lot of international companies like this. 28 of their top executives are Saudi women university graduates.
What is your idea regarding the future prospects for the Arabian Peninsula?
The future looks good to me, because the royal family, they're running for office every day of their lives. And so they have town meetings now all over the country to discuss current affairs, public wishes for changes in society, education, all kinds of subjects. Both women and men attend these town meetings, and the information from the town meetings goes to the royal family, the king, who in turn makes the required adjustments. And so the future looks good. And right now I'm a little concerned about the problem down in Yemen with the Houthi tribe. And the Houthi tribe used to be just rebels. You know, they were rebelling against the established government. And but it was kind of a tribal thing. But then Iran poked their nose into it. They saw it as an opportunity to upset things. And so now Saudi Arabia, with Iran supporting the Houthi rebellion, Saudi Arabia is running bombing missions against the Houthis in Yemen. And this too will pass. But currently, it's a big problem. So.
Great. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Mr. Renfro.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
And thank you. For Global Perspectives, I'm John Bercia, and we'll see you next time.